All right. Um, Welcome to the Styles. I'm back. And um I missed yesterday, but I don't want to force things. I could, but I don't want to force. But here's the deal. I just got something. And I'm gonna say this. I love UK, but I have a slight affiliation with Southern Miss because I was that close to going to Southern Miss. And if you don't know, my entire family, both sides, are from Woodville, Mississippi, and Southern Miss is the Harvard of Mississippi for my people that lived in Woodville. I mean, if you went to Southern Miss, you were sort of like, wow, you must be smart. Side story. So Coach Huff is has left Marshall and is going to Southern Miss, and I followed him a little bit, and I had a tweet today that a few minutes ago actually that I retweeted out, and it was about culture. And I believe this with all of my soul. And to hear other people iterate it solidifies my belief. And Coach Huff was talking about culture and all this stuff. And his quote was, if it ain't real and not player driven, it's not culture, it's rules. And it's so true. If it's coach driven, it's rules. It's not culture, it's rules. It's rules and regulations that players have to follow because they are forced to by the leader, so to speak. So then it becomes an ordeal or potentially problem sometimes for young men because it's rules, and some young men, what is the word I'm looking for? Don't like to follow or have a problem with authority. But when it's culture, which is peer driven, it's a little different, maybe a lot different. That's why you always hear me say that the locker room is a problem. Last year's team, locker room was a problem. And you can see it seep out onto the field. I'm not, I always say I'm not in Lexington, so I don't have the inside information, but I do know football and locker rooms. And when your best players are not your best leaders, it's going to be a problem. So, in today's day and age with NIL, with new guys coming in, it's harder to create culture because your culture creators are gone probably in a year, and there's no real holdover of the culture creators. It'll be nice to have a guy there 2 or 3 years to have a great example to lead off to another guy who has 2 or 3 years, and then you have a cycle of culture. Because now the freshmen or sophomores who are going to be your best players have learned from the past sophomores that end up being seniors who end up being the best player. So now there's a consistency in your culture. Now potentially you can still have culture, but it's not going to be consistent. It's going to change year to year because you have new leaders who are bringing their own type of leadership. But for the people whom I'm gonna say this in high school, coaches have a little more. They're a little more hands on because usually they're teachers or they're affiliated with the school in some manner, and they see the kid throughout the day, and their hands are a little bit more entrenched in the culture of the school. When you get to college, it's different. You get to college, it's different. Coach Curry would have been the greatest culture coach I've ever played with if he drove the culture. But he didn't. He had a vision for how he wanted his team to conduct themselves, but it all comes back to your leaders demonstrating his vision and them controlling, having an impact on the players, which then makes it culture, not rules. That is a quote for you. Never presented that when it's the coaches, it's a rule, which is like duh. But to hear it from Coach Hoff is like bam, ding 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 ding. As we had on the locker a year ago, maybe Wednesdays 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we had Jock Jones on there, and he explained the issue potentially with rules, culture. Which then means you can understand why those teams in the past had a pretty good culture and why this team last year did not have a good culture. Because even though the man above, no, I'm not going to say that, even though the head coach rules were a little lenient, and as Jock said, didn't totally give the players full control of the culture, the players still had control of the culture. Because here's the thing, when you get in that locker room, it's you and your boys. So even though the coach is a little lenient, the guys in the locker room can tighten that shit up. So even though Stoops is a little lenient with his rules, the culture can supersede the leniency in the rules because we are driving it. Not we, because I'm not a player. The players are driving the culture. Culture is more important than rules. That'd be great if the leaders combine the rules with culture. That would be the elite team. But culture is still always more important than the rules because when you have young men that can patrol themselves, no one needs rules. I can go on and on, y'all, but I got things to do. I just want to send that out there since I haven't talked in a few days. Culture, y'all, it's a real thing. And it's not rules. It can deal with rules, but sometimes it has nothing to do with rules. It has to deal with peers and leadership within that locker room. If you have that, then you can potentially reach the potential of your team. That team last year was not a 4-8 team. But the poor culture